Lost in Tokyo, a story in 6 parts. This is part 6, The Cave. As the stories of Lucie Blackman, Karita Ridgway, and numerous other victims echo in the corridors of justice, a pivotal question lingers. Is the elusive quest for justice within reach? We dance round in a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle and knows. In the winter embrace of Tokyo, a magical metamorphosis unfolds, painting the cityscape with cultural richness and a gentle touch of frost. The vibrant urban streets, once alive with innumerable amounts of colors, now exude a refined allure under the delicate embrace of snowflakes, adorning rooftops and trees with a serene elegance. Amidst this tranquil landscape, the marriage of traditional wooden architecture and contemporary skyscrapers resonates like a harmonious duet, illuminated by the soft luminescence of both paper lanterns and neon signs. The crisp air carries whispers of fragrant ramen and the sweetness of dorayaki pastries, inviting wanderers to savor soul-warming culinary treasures. As the city's residents drape themselves in exquisitely patterned kimonos and finely tailored suits, the streets evolve into a runway where the timeless and the avant-garde converge. Tokyo's winter, a tale of contrasts, weaves together the echoes of age-old traditions and futuristic aspirations, beckoning all to partake in its ethereal ballet, where the chill in the air adds a touch of enchantment to the unfolding symphony. This chill in the air was what also spurred on Superintendent Udo to reinvestigate the locations of Lucie Blackman's last known whereabouts. In early February 2001, 22 plainclothed police officers checked into an inn just a few hundred yards away from the Blue Sea Abaratsubo. They reserved their rooms for an entire month, and each day all 22 officers would go out to the beach with shovels, and they would search. 4 days later, Superintendent Udo decided that they had spread their search field out too far. And so, he had the officers focus on the 250 yards of beachfront that extended beneath the cliffs next to the Blue Sea Abaratsubo. This was a rocky cliffside, and the beach was not a thriving beach used for enjoyment. Rather, it was filled with boulders and dried leaves. The beach curved around the cliff, and as you follow the beach, once you are just out of sight of any buildings, there's a portion of the cliffside that has fallen away, creating a small cave. In the United States, this would be a place that teenagers would congregate and smoke pot, and it would be filled with trash and bad ideas. But we're talking about Japan here, and so that was not the case. It was in this cave that police found something puzzling: an old bathtub, which was partially submerged in the sand covering the cave floor. At 9 o'clock in the morning, 4 of the officers began unearthing the tub and sat it to the side, and then they began to dig. It did not take long before the officers made their first discovery in the form of a plastic garbage bag that seemed to contain several lumpy objects. The sweet and nauseating smell of decomposition reached the officers just as they discovered the lumpy objects to be a human arm and 2 human feet. The officer in charge of the search efforts pulled out his phone with a shaking hand, and he called Superintendent Udo. Through tears, the officer told Udo, Boss, we found Lucie-san. A complete team was swiftly convened to meticulously assess the scene, and with remarkable efficiency, a judge granted approval for a comprehensive search warrant spanning the entire area. Within a mere 2-hour window following the discovery, the cave's surroundings became a hive of activity, bustling with the presence of 40 officers. Simultaneously, news of the development spread with unexpected speed, drawing helicopters into the skies above the beach, while press photographers arrived in boats, gently bobbing in the sea's embrace, poised to capture the most opportune snapshots of the crime scene. The entire cave was excavated 2 feet below the sand, where investigators hit bedrock. The next part of Lucie that was discovered was her torso, laying naked in the sand. Then 2 more trash bags were found containing the rest of Lucie's remains. One of the bags contained a large lump of concrete. This concrete contained Lucie Blackman's head. The body was transported to Tokyo University Medical School for a thorough examination. It was within these confines that Lucie's head was meticulously retrieved from the heart of the concrete mass. Through careful study of dental records, medical professionals successfully established a definitive identification of the remains as belonging to the late Lucie Blackman. The Tokyo police were now hopeful that they may not have to receive a confession from Obara. Now that they had found Lucie's body, they had substantial evidence against him. But how had the police been so inept in this investigation? Lucie's body was buried just 200 yards from the apartment of their only suspect, a man they had interviewed just 5 days after Lucie's disappearance, a man witnesses told them was seen out on the beach with a shovel. During a press briefing, Tim Blackman unveiled his intentions for the Lucie Blackman Trust, a fund established to guarantee the security of young travelers. Tim's goal was to ensure that Lucie's passing would carry a meaningful purpose and not go to waste. A flyer was handed out bearing a photo of Lucie and Tim in a warm embrace, and it invited people to donate money to a Japanese bank account. Tim additionally informed the media that he, along with Lucie's siblings, would be embarking on a journey to the seaside cave where Lucie's body had been discovered. Expressing a desire for a private period of mourning, Tim conveyed the specifics of their travel plans directly to the press, thereby sharing both their need for solitude and the details of their upcoming trip. This was Rupert's first trip to Japan. As he was still in grade school, he had never been involved in the boots-on-the-ground portion of things when it came to his missing sister. Many journalists covering the case did not even know that Lucie Blackman had a brother to even mention. But when it came time to travel to Japan to bring his big sister home, Rupert insisted on going. Rupert said this about his sister: "She was always just my older sister, and I was the little brother. I didn't have a chance to build an adult relationship with Lucie in the way siblings do in their late teens or 20s. I was never mates with her, and I never will be." Rupert was immediately taken by the large city, a realm of exquisite orderliness, where the tapestry of society weaves together with meticulous precision. He noticed the bustling symphony of flawlessly timed trains, the geometric perfection of the city's layouts, and the quiet choreography of pedestrian crossings, which all bear witness to a culture deeply rooted in organization. Rupert said, I love the respect that everyone has for one another. It's humbling to see that, but it made it even harder to accept that this thing happened in this city. At the end of the week, the police took the family to the beach, where they descended a set of weathered and rusty stairs to reach the beach. Rupert wanted to see the exact spot Lucie had laid in secret for the past 7 months. He needed this to feel closer to his sister. Just as the Blackman family set foot on the sandy shore, a throng of eager reporters numbering in the dozens lay in wait. The staccato symphony of snapping cameras and whirling shutters commenced even before the sand cradled the Blackman's footsteps. Rupert had brought a bouquet of flowers to honor his sister's presence in this forlorn place. As the family walked forward toward the cave, the press followed them, snapping photos and edging ever closer to the grieving family. A surge of anger overcame Tim and Sophie, ignited by the invasive press's presence. Tim's fury manifested as he seized the photographer's ladders and hurled them down the shoreline, while Sophie's frustration found voice in a torrent of expletives aimed at the reporters. Amid this chaotic tableau, in the background, a somber cave loomed, its damp hollowness contrasting with the scene unfolding before it. There, in the cave, Rupert Blackman knelt where Lucie had been secreted away. His grief poured forth in tears as he clung to a bouquet of flowers. "14 days following the discovery of Lucie's remains within the rugged coastal cave, her parents, Jane and Tim, returned to Tokyo with the intention of repatriating their daughter's body. This was the first time that the two were present in Japan at the same time, although they traveled there separately, stayed in separate hotels, and did not speak a single word to one another the entire time they were in Japan. Sophie and Rupert flew to Japan with their father, and then they traveled back with their mother. Lucie's final voyage was within the confines of the aircraft's cargo area, enclosed within a sizable black wooden coffin. Lucie Blackman's funeral was held at the end of April 2001. The arrangements had been made by Jane, and the service was held at the St. Nicholas Parish Church in Chislehurst, just 12 miles from Sevenoaks. This was the same church Jane and Tim had been married in 25 years ago. The ceremony was beautiful, adorned with floral tributes sent by British Prime Minister Tony Blair and the Japanese ambassador. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police sent incense, which wafted its fragrant tribute throughout the service. In a poignant display of respect, numerous colleagues of Lucie's from British Airways were present, donned in their signature blue uniforms, paying homage to their dearly departed companion. Precisely a year and 3 days after Lucie's disappearance, on July 4th, 2001, Joji Obara faced trial for the rape and murder of Lucie Blackman. This marked his 8th appearance in court, as he had previously been charged with 5 counts of rape. Now, it's worth delving into some unique intricacies of the Japanese legal system. Instead of having defendants attend court hearings daily, they are typically brought to court only once or twice a month. Due to this approach, complicated cases like this one tend to unfold gradually and can take quite a while to prosecute. All of Obara's court hearings had been closed to the public so far in order to keep details private for the victims. Clara Mendez, Katie Vickers, and 3 Japanese women had all testified under anonymity. The hearings for the murder of Lucie Blackman would be open to the public, However, there would only be 60 seats open to the public. Almost 1,000 people lined up to enter the lottery for the 60 public seats. As the clock struck 10 in the morning, the courtroom doors swung open, and Joji Obara, flanked by 2 guards, made his entrance. Obara stood in front of the panel of 3 judges as the charges against him were read out loud. Jungokan Chishi, a rape resulting in death, was the charge levied against Obara for 2 separate women, Lucie Blackman and Kurita Ridgway. In Japanese courts, defendants do not simply enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Instead, they are allowed to either remain silent or comment on the charges. Joji Obara read a prepared statement aloud. In his statement, Obara admitted to having been with Kurita and Lucie on the nights in question, but he claimed no responsibility for either woman's death. Reporters flew from the courtroom to proclaim Obara's plea of not guilty and to tell the tale of a man who frequently took young women to Zushi Marina, drugging them and wearing a mask while he videotaped himself performing, in his words, conquest play. The details of Kurita Ridgway's case were swiftly presented. Her rapid deterioration in the hospital, the presence of chloroform in her liver, and the unsettling video portraying the masked conquest play. The weight of the evidence was profound, setting the stage for the court's transition to examining Obara's actions on Lucie's last day alive. On June 30th, at the stroke of midnight, Obara stopped to purchase some provisions from a convenience store in Akasaka. 40 minutes later, Obara stopped to fill up his Mercedes-Benz with gas. The following day, at 1:30 in the afternoon, Obara called Lucie to tell her he would be late picking her up. Obara then traveled to a local dry cleaner to drop off some laundry, and then he called Lucie again and drove to pick her up in front of the Sendagaya station at 3:30 p.m. As Obara drove the pair down the coast to Zushi Marina just after 5 p.m., Lucie borrowed his phone and called Luis Phillips. The photos taken of Lucie were taken at approximately 5:20 p.m. based on the photo analysis performed by experts. By 6 p.m., the two had entered the apartment 4314 at Zushi Marina. Lucie had grown hungry, and so Obara ordered food from a local restaurant, including fried chicken and tempura, shrimp, and eel. Around 7:14 p.m., a Tokyo Gas Company repairman arrived at the apartment. While Obara attended to this visit, Lucie made a call to her friend Luis using the new phone Joji Obara had provided her. Subsequently, she dialed her boyfriend Scott Fraser and left a voicemail, marking the last trace of communication before Lucie Blackman's inexplicable disappearance. Continuing, the prosecution detailed that Joji Obara had provided Lucie with a drink laced with sleeping pills, while also utilizing chloroform to induce unconsciousness. It was during the course of this disturbing conquest play that Lucie Blackman tragically lost her life. The drugs administered by Obara had precipitated either cardiac arrest or the failure of her respiratory functions. Later, on Sunday afternoon, Obara traveled by train and taxi to one of his apartments in Tokyo. He returned to Zushi Marina later that evening. The following morning, he traveled back to Tokyo and contacted Luis Phillips from one of his many burner phones. This was the call Luis received informing her that Lucie had joined a religious cult. Arriving back at the Zushi Marina apartment on Wednesday, July 5th, Obara brought along supplies procured during his trip to Tokyo, seemingly to aid in the disposal of Lucie Blackman's body. The presented evidence was compelling, yet indirect, and the charges relied heavily on Superintendent Udo and his team's gathered evidence. There existed no conclusive proof that definitively linked Joji Obara to the acts of murder, dismemberment, or burial of Lucie's remains. While no traces of Obara's DNA were found on Lucie's body, the question remained, if not him, then who else could possibly be responsible? Due to the lengthy and intricate processes within the Japanese court system, the case continued for what felt like an extended period. Hearing after hearing, prosecutors methodically presented their case, and in January of 2003, a doctor provided testimony regarding the toxic effects of chloroform. One by one, specialists took the stand to testify in the case. Anesthesiologists delved into the breathing patterns of the victims captured in the videotapes, while the caretaker of the Lucie Abaratsubo recounted Obara's peculiar behavior during the days that followed Lucie's disappearance. Joji Obara took the stand in his own defense, and he stood at the podium, engaging in a cross-examination conducted by his own legal team. Obara aimed to tear apart Lucie Blackman's character. Obara chose excerpts from Lucie's private diary to read aloud, specifically highlighting sections that would cause the greatest amount of embarrassment to her. These passages detailed instances of self-doubt, self-loathing, as well as her experiences with drugs and alcohol use. The court case continued on at its slow pace. Each month, Obara showed up in court and continued his assault on Lucie's character and the truth. By March 2006, nearly 5 years into the trial, it was the prosecution's opportunity to subject Joji Obara to cross-examination. The prosecution questioned Obara about his notebooks containing the notes of his sexual conquests, stretching from 1970 to 1995. 209 women who had somehow fallen victim to the serial rapist. "What do you mean by SMYK?" the prosecutor asked Obara. "What does it mean?" Obara replied that he did not want to answer. The prosecutor pressed on. "How about number 4? I gave her sleeping drugs." Or number 21, "Today, I gave her sleeping drugs." Obara's face was flush with sweat as he wiped his forehead with the small blue cloth he always had on hand. The Japanese word for sleeping drugs is suiminyaku, and so the prosecutor asked, "Does SMYK mean suiminyaku?" Obara responded, "I don't want to answer that." The prosecutor pressed on. Number 144, "Gave too much SMYK and CHM. I was very shaken up. What is the meaning of this CHM?" Obara responded, "I forgot." Number 150, "You wrote CRORO. What does this mean?" Obara, once again, "I don't want to answer that." The prosecutor explained to Obara, "It means chloroform, doesn't it?" In Japanese, the word chloroform is kororuhorumu. In April 2006, Jane Blackman, Tim Blackman, and Annette, the mother of Kurita Ridgway, traveled to Tokyo to provide their own evidence. The two women were scheduled to testify first, followed by Tim 5 days later. This was scheduled purposely by the court to eliminate any confrontations between Jane and Tim. As they arrived in the court, Chief Justice Tochigi smiled at the women and presented himself in a warm manner. He told the women, "The court has received word that the defendant has refused to appear before the court today. In Japan, a criminal trial may not proceed if a defendant is not present in court. However, If the defendant does not have a legitimate excuse to miss his court date, the trial may proceed. Justice Tochigi explained. He has taken off his clothes and is clinging to the sink in his cell. The defendant has not given any justifiable reason for not appearing. Given that the bereaved families have come from abroad, the court has decided that despite the absence of the defendant, we will not wait for him. Taking the witness stand, Jane recounted Lucie's childhood and her transition into young adulthood. She wrapped up her testimony with a poignant declaration, stating, "The fact that Obara has refused to attend court today is very dishonorable and a clear sign of his guilt. He is a coward." Next, Annette stepped forward to offer her testimony. She spoke about her late daughter, Karita, and the profound impact of her absence on Karita's older sister, Samantha, as well as Karita's boyfriend, Robert Finnegan. She ended her testimony with her own final statement. "She was a wonderful daughter, and nothing can replace her. My preference for Obara's sentence is that he should be executed. However, in the circumstances, that is impossible. Therefore, he should be in prison until he dies." 5 days later, Tim Blackman appeared in court. Once again, the cowardly Joji Obara refused to appear in court. Tim spoke for half of an hour. Navigating the tempestuous storm of a case like this proves to be an arduous journey for anyone involved. As the summer of 2006 arrived, Sophie Blackman found herself seeking an escape from the turmoil, and she pursued it through the only means she understood. I will refrain from delving into the specifics of this episode out of respect for Sophie Blackman. However, I can share that Sophie attempted to end her own life, a tragic act that mercifully was thwarted by medical intervention. Subsequently, she received care from mental health professionals in a psychiatric facility, where she embarked on a path of healing and recovery. While Sophie was undergoing treatment in the hospital, her father, Tim, came for a visit. In a moment of revelation, Tim confided in Sophie that Joji Obara had offered him a substantial sum of money, £500,000 to be precise, in exchange for Tim signing a document aimed at discrediting the evidence against Obara in court. In an unexpected turn, Tim Blackman chose to accept this offer. The proposal had undergone negotiations between Tim and Obara's legal representatives. Comparable offers had also been extended to Lucie's mother, Jane, who promptly rebuked the unscrupulous lawyers. For his part in the deal, Tim would agree to make a series of statements to the court, including the following. "The accused has shown contrition and expressed sorrow at Lucie's death. As Lucie's father and as a Christian, I am able to forgive the accused, and our relationship is resolved. I hope that he will rehabilitate himself into the community." A few days after accepting this offer, Tim suddenly withdrew from the negotiations. Over the following months, however, Tim re-engaged in negotiations with Obara's legal representatives. By the end of September, he flew back to Tokyo to meet with Obara's legal team at the new Otani Hotel. Come October, Obara's attorneys commenced their closing arguments, a mere 5 days after $850,000 found its way into Tim Blackman's bank account on the Isle of Wight. As emotions might be running high and thoughts about Tim Blackman may be strongly negative, allow me to provide some context. In some legal cases in Japan, including criminal ones, it is possible for perpetrators or their legal teams to negotiate settlements with victims or their families. These payments, often referred to as condolence money or atonement money, are not a legal admission of guilt, but rather a way to reach a resolution outside of the court system. They are sometimes offered as a means to compensate victims or their families and potentially influence their willingness to cooperate or testify during legal proceedings. However, it's important to note that the acceptance of such payments does not necessarily affect the outcome of the criminal case itself. The Japanese legal system still operates independently, and prosecutors can continue with their case regardless of any settlements reached between the parties. On the day following Tim Blackman's departure from Tokyo, Joji Obara's legal team publicized the payment. This development reignited media interest in the case, leading to articles in English newspapers with headlines such as "A Father's Betrayal." Tim's former partner, Jane, conducted an interview during which she branded Tim as immoral, concluding her statement with the following quote, "As far as I am concerned, Tim accepted 100 million pieces of silver. Judas was content with just 30. After a mind-numbing amount of court hearings, the final two hearings, number 60 and 61, would be for the closing arguments from each side of the case. On December 11th, 2006, marking the passage of 2,339 days since Lucie Blackman was lost in Tokyo, the trial of Joji Obara reached its conclusion. 6 years. This trial took 6 years, an unthinkable amount of time for most of us to consider under these circumstances. The verdict was to be delivered at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, April 24th, 2007. Most everyone assumed they already knew what the verdict would be. The case was very clear, and Obara's own actions contributed to how guilty he looked to most people. Reporter Richard Lloyd Perry was one of the first journalists to publish his article after the verdict was read. The article stated, "The Japanese property owner, Joji Obara, was acquitted of raping and killing the British bar hostess, Lucie Blackman, this morning in a devastating blow for her family and a grave embarrassment for the Tokyo police and prosecutors. Obara received a life sentence in prison nonetheless, after guilty verdicts on 8 other charges of rape and one of raping and killing Australian hostess Carita Ridgway. His legal team immediately said that he would appeal." The acquittal of Joji Obara for the murder of Lucie Blackman drew criticism from former Japanese prosecutor Takeshi Tsuchimoto, who contrasted this case with the conviction of Masumi Hayashi, which was also based on circumstantial evidence. In Japan, both the prosecution and the defense are allowed to appeal court rulings. The prosecutor appealed the Blackman-related verdicts, driven by the absence of crucial forensic evidence during the initial trial. Consequently, an appeal trial commenced on March 25, 2008, within the Tokyo High Court. Ultimately, on December 16, 2008, Joji Obara was found guilty of abduction, dismemberment, and disposing of Lucie Blackman's body. In early December 2010, the Supreme Court of Japan dismissed Obara's appeal, upholding his life sentence. The stories of Lucie Blackman and Carita Ridgway are not merely chapters in a book. They are poignant narratives that stir the deepest corners of our hearts. While these tales unveil dark and unsettling truths, it is essential to remember that they do not represent the entirety of Japan or its people. The beauty of Japan extends far beyond these shadows, encompassing a society built on honor, tradition, and respect. In this land of cherry blossoms and ancient temples, where the landscape paints serene landscapes, and the metropolises pulse with innovation. There lies a society that values unity and harmony. The intricacies of Japan's legal system do not define its essence, for in its heart beats the spirit of kinship and shared aspirations. As we delve into these secrets hidden within the folds of these stories, we must not allow them to overshadow the real Japan, a realm of deep-rooted traditions and modern marvels where kindness, humility, and a commitment to progress harmoniously coexist. The tales of Lucie and Kurita might uncover grim realities, but they do not tarnish the radiant beauty that is Japan. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and thank you for helping us in honoring the memories of those who have departed this world prematurely. Until next time, we dance round in a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle and knows.
Today's episode of The Secret Sits was researched and written by the host, John Dodson. All episodes are engineered and mixed by me, Gabriel Dodson. Check the show notes for links to all of our social media. Email us at thesecretsitspodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts.